Lady Diffin.
We now move to oral questions to the Minister of State at the Cabinet Office. Lord Hayne.
Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
Lord Frost.
My Lords, as you would expect, the Government continues to observe very closely the situation as regards trade on the island of Ireland, but also more broadly, for example, trade in goods from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. It is clear that trade in both directions between Ireland and Northern Ireland has increased significantly since the start of the year, and that this constitutes trade diversion created by the pressures of the Protocol.
I thank the Noble Lord for his reply. On the Protocol, the Noble Lord told the Centre for Policy Studies at the Conservative Party conference on the 5th of October, and I quote directly, that he was keeping the other side on the hop, cultivating uncertainty with regard to how we're going to react. Why?
My Lords, I did indeed say that, and it's because it's my job to get the best outcome for this country in the negotiations that I'm charged with conducting, and that's what we did over the previous 18 months, and that's what I intend to do now. I don't think it would be particularly good tactics to reveal to the other side exactly what we were going to do or how we were going to go about it.
Lord Moylan.
Lords, in addition to disrupting and diverting trade, the Northern Ireland Protocol contains a systemic democratic deficit in that laws are made with direct effect for Northern Ireland by the European Union with no opportunity for democratic say by those affected. This is unique in Europe. My Lords, would my noble friend agree that the removal of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice in Northern Ireland is a necessary but not sufficient step for correcting this anomaly and restoring this basic human right?
My Lords, I very much agree with the thrust of the question asked by my noble friend. We've made very clear in the command paper that we published in July that the Court of Justice and the system of law, of which it was at the apex, were a big part of the political difficulty that has arisen in Northern Ireland, and we need to find more balanced ways of resolving disputes for the future.
Lord Little.
My Lords, in the Noble Lord's recent speech in Lisbon, which he made in Lisbon and not in this House, he said that the Protocol represents a moment of EU overreach when the UK's negotiating hand was tied. But aren't the facts somewhat different? Isn't it the case that the Johnson government, on your recommendation, accepted an arrangement that Theresa May said no British Prime Minister would ever accept? That the Johnson government, presumably on your recommendation, decided to prioritise a hard Brexit over the sustainability of the Good Friday Agreement and peace and security in Northern Ireland, and that the Johnson government, perhaps on your recommendation, signed a treaty in the full knowledge that you had no intention of implementing its full provisions. Isn't it about time you accepted some personal responsibility for the mess we are in Ireland?
So, my Lords, I reject the implication of the question that there is any contradiction between so-called hard Brexit, which is the only real Brexit and the only form of Brexit that allows this country the freedom it needs, and peace and security in Northern Ireland. Those two objectives are perfectly compatible. They absolutely are compatible. We agreed a protocol that we hoped would do the job. It needed sensitive handling. It was highly uncertain in some of its mechanisms, and unfortunately it has not got the sensitive handling it has needed, and therefore we need to come back to the question. That is a pity, but unfortunately it's the reality.
Lord Purvis of Tweed.
My Lords, on the 4th of August, the Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency, in their most recent publication, had highlighted that trade between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland in 2019 had increased 9.9%, whereas in the UK it to the GB, it had increased by 6.6%. So his claim that there's a trade diversion as a result of the protocol is not the case. There is now trend with growth to the rest of the Republic. So therefore, is it not part of the UK government's responsibility to promote exports from Northern Ireland to Ireland and make sure that the Northern Ireland economy benefits from certain parts of the protocol? So what are the elements of the protocol that he's most proud of?
My Lord, I'm proud of securing a deal that delivered on democracy and took this country out of the European Union in 2019, as the people of this country had voted for. On the question of trade, the Irish Central Statistics Office, if you look at the figures for the first 8 months of the year, show that trade from Ireland to Northern Ireland has gone up 35%, and from Northern Ireland to Ireland has gone up 50%. Those are significant figures and clearly show that there is something unusual going on, which I think is trade diversion.
Anna Chapman of Darlington.
I've just got a couple of very simple questions for the Minister about this, and I did try and ask them last week after he flew back from Lisbon, but he didn't seem to want to answer them then, and I'm going to try again today, and they're very, very simple. The first is this. He has sent a draft legal text of the protocol, which he says he has written, to Brussels. He doesn't want to show his cards on other issues, but seeing as he's already shown the text to Brussels, why isn't he showing it to parliamentarians in the UK? Hear, hear. The second question is this. It is very important that he engages meaningfully and fully with elected politicians in Northern Ireland on this issue. Did he consult with any ministers in the Northern Ireland Assembly before he sent his draft text of the Northern Ireland Protocol to Brussels? Yeah.
My Lords, I think the question is slightly based on a misconception, which is that the legal text that we sent in represents some new stage or evolution in our position. It does not. It reflects the position that was set out in the command paper on the 21st of July and puts it into legal form. It's a negotiating document for the purposes of negotiations. It does not change the UK government's position in any way. And of course we discuss with elected politicians all the time in Northern Ireland what our position is, and we did that as part of preparing the command paper.
My Lords, I'm interested in trade, and especially in exports, because they're so vital to UK growth and success. We've heard from the Minister about trade within the island and Ireland, but can I ask him how he expects the pattern of UK trade within the EU 27, both in goods and in services, to change in the years ahead?
My Lords, my noble friend identifies an important point, which is that trade, both in goods and services, is subject to a lot of noise at the moment, the ongoing COVID pandemic, the effects of leaving the customs union and the single market, stock building and so on, and it's difficult to isolate trends. But nevertheless, our goods exports are closely back to the levels of 2019. Services exports and imports are down somewhat, but of course there's been a huge impact on movement of persons, tourism, and so on, which has very significantly affected those figures. So we're at a long time before we're at a steady state, but I have huge confidence in the ability of our exporters and traders to manage that situation.
Lord Wallace of Saltaire.
My Lord, could the Minister clarify if he understood when negotiating the protocol that it was incompatible with British sovereignty, or whether he's discovered that since? He will recall that A.V. Dyce's definition of UK sovereignty as indivisible, which I know he now follows, was shaped by his active and bitter opposition to Irish Home Rule. In those terms, the Good Friday Agreement is also an infringement of indivisible UK sovereignty. Does the Minister think that that should also be renegotiated?
My Lord, so I think the difficulty we have with the protocol is not so much the sovereignty issue, because the protocol is very clear that the territorial integrity of the UK and the integrity of the internal market of the UK are protected in the protocol. It is the difficulty it has generated in movements of goods and trade within the United Kingdom. And if the protocol was to work, it would have required very sensitive handling, and unfortunately has not had that sensitive handling, and therefore we have a political problem.
Order Donors.
My Lords, the new EU ambassador to the United Kingdom presented his credentials to Her Majesty the Queen earlier this week. There was a reception afterwards at which many members of the House were present. The noble lord was not present, nor was any representative of the government present, which, as a senior diplomat pointed out to me, would have been utterly inconceivable at an equivalent reception for a new ambassador from the United States or any of our other principal allies. I know that the noble lord has now decided to set himself up as an anti-diplomat rather than a diplomat and unlearn all of the art and craft of his trade, which he'd accumulated over the previous 20 or 30 years. But doesn't he think that the interest of the United Kingdom would be well served by him once again becoming a diplomat rather than gratuitously insulting our European partners?
My Lords, I would very much have wished to go to that reception. Unfortunately, as colleagues know, I was not well on Tuesday and couldn't attend, but my office was there and represented me, because I did wish to avoid any apparent discourtesy, and the ambassador has acknowledged that. It's very important that we maintain the normal diplomatic arrangements between our countries and territories, and it's absolutely my intention that we should do that.
My Lords, the time allowed for this question